Welcome to the League Championship Series edition of Diamond Kings, the premier baseball talk show on YouTube, brought to you by our blog at Reading Between the Seams and the Sports Kings Media Network. We missed our show last week because all of us were watching our favorite teams play. We had Leroy watching his Royals, Lorenzo and his Angels, myself checking out the Orioles, and Michael and the Braves. Oh,
Ah,
not so
dude,
much.
that
And of
hurts.
course, we're missing Kelvin tonight, but he was watching the What? They didn't make it. Huh?
No, Jeter.
Guess no Yankees either. Well, at least 3 of the 4 ain't bad. So we're going to recap all of that action. It's going to be an exciting league championship series. We got some new faces in the American League. We got some familiar faces in the National League. And my name is David Whitlock down here in Houston, Texas. My Sports Kings All-Star squad is back, starting with Michael Prosser from Florence, South Carolina. How are you, Michael?
I can't complain, and now it looks like now there's only 2/3 of the group that are going to be able to continue watch. But hey, as Meatloaf once said, don't be sad, because 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
That's right. And joining us from the left coast, west coast, our Inland Empire King, Lorenzo Mejia from Murrieta, California. How are you?
Doing great, doing great.
Doing great despite his Angels not doing so great, but we'll talk about that. And then the guy with the biggest smile amongst all of us with his big Kansas City Royals hat on is Leroy McConnell III. How are you tonight, Leroy?
I just wish we were another West Coast team. We're undefeated 4-0, baby.
4-0 in the playoffs. That's kind of an amazing feat. In fact, he's so excited he's kind of frozen there. I hope he's still with us. But let's start talking about the last week or so that we've seen of baseball. Now, the wild card games, we had one really, really exciting game and one that was a blowout. We got past that. We've got some really exciting games, but none of the series besides the wild card have gone down to the last game. So we have to start with Lorenzo. What are your thoughts on the first rounds of the playoffs, and of course, in particular, what happened to the Angels? It wasn't so good for them. They kind of ran into a buzzsaw with those Royals. So, what have you seen so far that surprised you? What did you see that you expected, and your analysis?
Well, it comes to the Angels, they just didn't hit. That's what it all comes down to. They couldn't hit it during the playoffs, and Trout was horrible. Pujols was horrible. They should have benched Hamilton in the beginning of the series. He hadn't played in a while. Overall, though, they just couldn't hit. The Royals, they're a team of destiny. They don't have any real studs on the team, but you know what? It's great. I'm happy for the Royals and their fans. As far as the Dodgers and the Royals, I don't blame Mattingly for leaving Kershaw in. I really don't, because of the out of.
I'm not sure he's on. Is anybody else hearing him?
I can't hear him.
He's,
Yeah, got a microphone problem.
wait a minute.
All this time I thought y'all could hear him. I couldn't.
Right.
It looks like he's muted.
And mute him. All right, well, while he figures that out, we'll move on to Leroy. Of course, your Royals had a really successful week. They knocked off 2 main contenders from the left coast. Now you're out of left coast teams to play, so now you got to take on the challenge in my Baltimore Orioles. But what are your thoughts on the first week?
Well, first of all, in Game 1, when we played against Oakland, I thought Ned Yost tried his best to get fired that game. Fans in the Kansas City have been asking for his firing all year, and there's no way he should have. There's no way we should have won that game. Oakland gave it to us on the platter. We did have some timely hits, so play with some heart in the later innings, and we snuck by. But when we ran into the Angels, I think the matchup was in our favor because I don't think the Angels adapted to small ball at all. And to make it so bad, we only hit 95 home runs through the whole regular season, and we hit 4 in that 4 critical home runs that was the difference in the game because 2 of those games were in with the extra innings. Hosmer, and if he doesn't hit a home run, he's striking out. Hosmer is playing out of his mind. You might want to check his urine because they are playing that ball.
Hello.
I think Yost did a good job as far as using his own pitchers. Got a starting pitchers at least got 6 innings and putting in Finnegan, who played college baseball this past year. He was able to contribute and give us a strong inning. I believe he's about the eighth inning pitcher. Herrera usually comes in the 7th inning, shuts things down, and you get the ball to Wade Davis, it's lights out. So, we're very ecstatic. All we needed to do to get a chance to get in the playoffs, our pitchers are our strong suit, and small ball. As you see, we have not been picked off still in the base yet. So it's amazing, and like I said, this is a good time to be a Kansas Royals fan.
Yeah, the Royals had a great week, and yeah, the speed game was definitely there. You didn't expect the power game, but those games kept dragging on and waiting for somebody to get a big hit. And as Lorenzo was talking about, nobody for the Angels can come up with a big hit. We'll do a mic check on Lorenzo. Are you back? Not hearing you. All right. Got to learn sign language. But in the meantime, Michael, what are your thoughts? I know your Braves didn't make it. That was kind of, I think, expected by the time we got down to the last week. But as an impartial fan, what did you see this last week that you liked, that you didn't like, and kind of how, what happened to some of the favorites that didn't advance when they were expected to?
Is he muted too?
I hope not. Losing guys left and right.
He's frozen.
All right, technical difficulties, folks. But I'll flip it back to Leroy while Michael maybe pulls it back together. What are your thoughts on some of the National League series? Were you able to watch either of those? Kind of what happened to the Nationals and the Dodgers as favorites?
Well, I'm disappointed in I think Don Mattingly did a terrible job managing Kershaw, for example. Little do we know, he should have known that Kershaw has had difficulty with the St. Louis Cardinals. That's the only team he's got to have a winning record against. Matter of fact, I think he's 1-4, 1-5 against them lifetime. This guy has a career 2.48 ERA in the regular season, and he has doubled in the playoffs. He pitched a great 6 innings in both games, and like I said, you want your ace to go in, and he did home. I can understand, and they didn't pull him when they should have in the first game, and I'll be doggone, it happened again. He ran into trouble in the 7th inning. He pitched 6 glorious innings in both games.
6 innings of one-hit ball, both games. I think Lorenzo's back. I'm hearing some rustling on Lorenzo. He's about to come out of his chair. He disagrees with that.
Okay, here's my response to Leroy. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay.
I don't hear him.
I hear him. So you're.
When it comes to taking out Kershaw, why would you do that? Why would you take out your stud in that moment? You're going to go down with your best player. If he's not going to be able to do it, do you think anybody in the bullpen, you trust Brian Wilson or League or any of those guys? No, you don't do that. You keep your ace in there for as long as he can go. And if you look at the last game that he pitched in, he had a perfect 6 innings. First 2 batters get on, and then he gives up the bomb to Adams. That's going to happen. At that point, you leave him in. You pretty much ride him as long as he can go, because you know what? You're going to go down with your best player. You have to. Kershaw's their stud. They have nobody else in the bullpen they can trust. The only other was to get their closer in there, get Jensen in there. But if you do that, though, then they're going to question him whether or not that it's good that he went to a closer so early. As far as Mattingly, you said he did a horrible job. He may have done a horrible job, but I don't think it's worth it for him to lose his job over. There's really nobody else that he can bring in. I heard a rumor today, of course, on LA Sports Talk Radio, that they were going to start interviewing Kirk Gibson, and who just got fired from the Diamondbacks. Yeah. And if that's true, that's horrible. That'd be horrible to bring him in. If anybody needs to go, it has to be the GM. The GM is the one that makes the decisions on the bullpen itself, not Mattingly. It's not Mattingly's fault that Puig got into a funk at the end of the season. It's not Mattingly's fault that the bullpen couldn't hold any saves, hold any leads. Ultimately, if anybody's going to lose their job, it has to be Coletti, the GM.
Yeah, it was tough with the Kershaw thing because some of those hits he gave up in both of the games were, just out of the reach of a glove, right? Kind of, hard hit balls, but plays that, man, just one squeeze in one spot, and particularly losing that huge lead in game one really set the tone for the series. I wasn't so sure about starting him on short rest. I don't like starting pitchers on short rest, and that could be a franchise decision. It may not have been his alone. It might have been Coletti's or as a team. But I feel like if you start a guy on short rest, he's not going to hit the strike zone as much. His pitch count's going to be higher, and of course he's coming in with a tired arm. So by the fifth or sixth or seventh, you're going to see him more tired. And now you've wasted a guy that could have gone 8 or 9 on regular rest, and he's pitched 5 or 6 less effective innings.
Okay.
You
live to play for today, though.
What's that?
You live to play for today, and the next day Greinke's going to be starting Game 5. Greinke's another stud.
If you got a $240 million roster, and you got a $240 bullpen, and I'm like, okay, you started him 6 innings, but this was a do or die for the Dodgers. I understand that. Where the hell is Dan Herron at? I mean, can he go in and he's not the DL?
You're going to trust your season on Dan Herron?
He didn't start.
You're going to trust
pitcher. How come he didn't come in? He could at least help.
Okay, let's say that Mattingly did pull him out to the 6th inning, and you throw Dan Herron in there. And Dan Herron gives it the same runs. Do you realize how much criticism and everyone's going to talk about Mattingly? Why'd you take out Kershaw? He only had 6 innings. It was less than 80 pitches. Why would you do something like that? It's it's something that ultimately hindsight's 20/20, of course, but I think he made the right play.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20. There's a lot of hindsight on Yost, as Leroy was talking about in that wild card game that they pulled it out. And if the Dodgers had come back and won and we forced a Game 5, we would not be talking about it. Good discussion. We're still trying to get Michael back on. But in the meantime, let's move on to the next round of the playoffs, and we'll start with the American League Championship Series, of course, with Leroy's Kansas City Royals facing my second-choice team behind the Astros, which are not ready yet, the Baltimore Orioles, two teams that haven't made the World Series since the mid to early 80s. Of course, the Kansas City story is been posted everywhere that they hadn't even made the playoffs in since that 85 season. But we'll start with Leroy. What are your predictions for the series? Are the Royals going to keep this momentum going? Both teams are undefeated in the playoffs. Both teams have beat worthy candidates. But do you think it's the Royals' world, or are the Orioles going to keep going?
I got to say, this is all about the I-70 series. The Royals will make it.
And you have been saying that on
It is destined. St. Louis is gunning for us, and we'll take the challenge. Pretty good with them. I believe during the season we had a 1-game edge with them during the season. I know that doesn't mean anything. I know I'm a homer, and I know if East Coast bias out there, everybody's probably picking the Baltimore. They got the big guns. We don't. We have the pitchers. I think we're both even as far as the bullpen is concerned, and I am concerned about. I think Showalter is the manager of the year of the AOL, and I think he will outmanage Ned Yost, and I don't think that's hard to do. But the thing is, it is all about destiny, and I think the Royals are hungry. I mean, heck, you haven't heard Hosmer's name all year. I'm like this. He's been hurt all year, injury prone, and he has lighted fire in this team. Everybody is playing. We're playing dynamic defense, timely hitting. We get on base. You might as well first to third. We get on first base on the walk. That second base is gonna get stolen. Matt Wieters ain't out there catching the ball this postseason. We don't have to worry about Chris Davis for another 5 games. And isn't it fitting that in the remaining 4 teams, there's not a big name out there. The biggest name out there probably is Nelson Cruz, and that's because of the PEDs. But there's no Trout, there's no Kershaw, there's not 3 Musketeers up there in Detroit. It is small ball, and there's a bunch of no names out there on both sides of the team. Well, you even got the Giants, who've won 2 World Series in the last 2 or 3, 4 years, and St. Louis Cardinals have been in the World Series. There's no big names in there, so it's going to be an exciting playoff series. And I'm excited, and and one thing Kansas City plays good on the road. So Baltimore, you better watch out. We're after game one.
And beautifully said by Leroy. All right, we got Michael back. We think we got Michael back. Real briefly, your thoughts on the first round of the playoffs, and then if you want to transition to the American League Championship Series.
Well, first off, I don't know what the hell is going on with modern technology tonight, but tonight is not apparently the night for modern technology. Having said that, seeing this ALCS makes me think that a time warp back to 1985, which I think was the last time these two teams were relevant at any one point. Together, might I add. I mean, Baltimore had that run in '97, but I feel like I should be watching my TV with 3 knobs on it and seeing Cal Ripken out there playing shortstop or something. I mean, but in a way, it's kind of exciting. You see these two franchises that have struggled and draked their way, to the ALCS. I mean, these guys were literally bottom feeders. I mean, horrible draft pick after horrible draft pick after horrible draft pick.
Decades.
And now look at this. I mean, boom, they're at the top. It's really cool. I get the feeling that the LCS is going to be a little bit more interesting than the LCS because it's teams that haven't had the opportunity to be here. And excuse me, the NLCS is pretty much you know what to expect. That's the Giants. That's the Cardinals. That's going to be a great matchup regardless. I don't know who I give the edge to with that one. The ALCS, it's a little bit tougher to call because you've got this upstart Royals team who's seemingly come out in the clutch. And I'm not talking about like clutch in a car. I'm talking about like Sergeant Slaughter Cobra clutch. Like that's how clutch these guys are. I mean, that's ridiculously clutch. I mean, I never would have called Mike Moustakas hitting that homer in the 11th. I mean, of all places. If anything though, I think it showed a lot about this Angels team. It needs reworked. A little bit, a lot remains to be seen. I don't think we heard Albert Pujols' name, 5 times all season maybe? 10 times all season? The guy disappeared. He completely fell off the face of the earth. Is he even still, did he dig his way to China or, is he stranded in Antarctica somewhere? I don't even know. He got swallowed up in the Inland Empire.
Early in the year, Pujols was among the league leaders in home runs because I had him on some fantasy teams, and he got to 15, 16, 18 home runs early. And then at that point, he kind of flatlined. And then about that time, Hamilton came back. He kind of got the team going. But
who did you say? Hamilton.
Yeah, Hamilton.
Aside from that, I kind of get the feeling that this is going to be like a tale of two championship series. It kind of reminds me of, and this is probably going to be the weirdest thing that I can probably say in this show, but it kind of reminds me of the '93 NCAA men's basketball final between North Carolina and Michigan, when North Carolina was patterned, everything was planned. Michigan was like a pickup game on the in the schoolyard. With the NLCS, you've got the Cardinals, you've got the Giants. Patterned, everything is pretty much, you know what you're going to get. These ALCS teams, those are wild card teams. Like, we don't really know anything about them to an extent. There's guys on the team that are nobodies. It's going to be fun to watch. I will say that, ladies and gentlemen. So, if I were you, I'd tune in. I don't think I'm going to be able to with my work schedule now because Wednesdays have got me going to bed at like 8 o'clock Eastern. Yeah, waking up at 4 is a pain in the rear, but you get used to it after a while. But anyways, should be fun.
Yeah, no, you bring up an interesting point with the viewership. I'm interested. I haven't seen any of the TV numbers yet, but of course we joked coming into this show that you don't have any Yankees, you don't have any Red Sox, you don't have any Braves. Which a lot of people say, well, that's just going to kill the viewership. Nobody's going to care about this postseason. After all these exciting games, it just seems like there's a buzz going. And what are the Royals going to do next? What's going to happen in that next game? How can the Orioles keep it up? And the Dodgers, okay, Kershaw on short rest and all that I don't think the viewership's going to suffer, and we'll see. All right, Lorenzo's been very, very patient. what are your thoughts on the ALCS? Michael talked a little bit about the NLCS. That'll be our next segment. He can talk more. But what are your thoughts on the ALCS? Predictions? How do you see it going down?
Okay, everything you guys have all said has been completely wrong. Here's what I'm going to say about that. When it comes to the ratings, the ratings are going to be horrible. The viewer ratings are going to be horrible because look at the two teams that are left, Baltimore and Kansas City. Like Leroy said, there's no studs on the team. Stars was drive ratings. And the only person I would have tuned in to watch would be Manny Machado. But since he's not there, who are you going to tune in to watch? Alcides Escobar? Eric Hosmer? Mike Moustakas? Really, none of those guys do anything to drive the ratings. It's a horrible ratings. It's not good for any of them. And yeah, I just don't agree. The ratings are going to be horrible. Those are the two worst teams that are going to be around. The ALCS is going to be a boring series, a bunch of 2-1 games, and 2-1 games that are going to last 5 hours because Ned Yost is going to have 25 pitching changes in the first 6 innings. The games are going to take forever, and nobody's going to watch it. I'm not going to watch it. Like you said earlier, we don't have any big markets. None of the New York, Boston, LA, Dallas, Chicago, none of those big cities are in there. Biggest city you might say is San Francisco, but San Francisco doesn't care about baseball. They don't. And so these 4 markets that are there, the worst World Series matchup for the ratings, it's probably going to be Kansas City and St. Louis. Like the I-70 matchup, yeah, it'll be good in that little area, that little strip of land where maybe 10,000 people live, maybe 10,000 people. Let's go to the Big Coast. Okay, I'm done with my rant about the ALCS.
Wasn't that also the '85 World Series?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
What was 85 World Series?
It's the second time 1985 was mentioned.
Yeah, the Royals beat the Cardinals on a bad Doug Dinkinger call at first base.
George Order getting to first base. He was out by 3 steps easy.
Yeah, it's still tough. It's a replay wasn't around early enough.
That's why it's got to be I-70 Part 2.
Yeah. All good points, guys. It'll be interesting to see. Now, Baltimore is kind of in the quote DC area, but these are all teams that are basically supported by their own markets. I mean, St. Louis. If you put St. Louis in the playoffs, 70% of St. Louis television are going to be tuned into that game that day, particularly because the football team's lousy and they don't even have a basketball team. But outside,
the Blues are worth watching, man. Come on.
No, that's our last segment. We'll talk some hockey later. But Kansas City certainly a big football town, but not a lot of these teams don't have a lot of national appeal. So Lorenzo has some good points. I think good baseball will fuel the ratings. It'll be interesting. There's been some quote bad World Series in the past that didn't get good ratings. When there was demolishings of the Colorado Rockies and things like that. But anyway, let's move on to the National League. So now we've got 2 teams that have won, I think, the last 4 or 5 NL pennants. You got the Giants on one side, the Cardinals on the other. As Michael talked about, 2 franchises that have basically gone about it by pulling in spare parts, raising enough of their own talent, always have good pitching, usually a good bullpen. Neither team has a ton of power or any star power. Let's start with Leroy. What are your thoughts on the National League Championship Series? How do you see it breaking down and going?
This will be a fun series. Once again, we're talking about the managers. You got to give Mike Matheny some credit. He's been there the playoffs. He's been in NLCS the last 4 years since he's been in. That's amazing. And what's the surprising thing is St. Louis Cardinals, they rotate their players over and over. There's only 3 guys on the original World Series team from 3 or 4 years ago. But they have timely hitting, timely pitching, and they're very crafty. But I like the Giants. The Giants, of course, this is an even year, and I believe the Cardinals have won theirs in an odd year. But this is an even year, and I know we haven't talked about this. Everybody wants to know who's the next Derek Jeter. The next Derek Jeter plays for the Giants. His name is Buster Posey. He is the face of that. Yes, believe me. And the reason why I say that, when you think of Jeter, and I know you're a Giant hater because you're an LA guy. The thing about Jeter and Posey's not going to lead in the league in anything, but he is a proven winner. He does the little things just like Jeter. I mean, people are going to get to know that. And heck, if this kid come out and win the 3rd doggone World Series, you got to put him up there with Jeter. He is going to. He is the face of the franchise. He is the golden boy, and like I said, he makes that team rock. You got Pablo. You got freaking Lincecum coming out of the freaking bullpen if needed. You got Madison Bumgarner and Volgerson. And he's coming out there and he's done superb since Matt Cain's been on the DL. The Giants are tough to beat. And like I said, I think the difference between the Giants and the Cardinals is Bochy. Bochy's is the manager that you have to beat him. And I think I would choose the Giants once again, get to the World Series out of the two.
Yeah. Now I know you're also predicting an I-70 series, and that's probably just your homerism hoping that. But, one note on that is that Buster Posey, he's won an MVP before, so that's something Jeter has never won. I think both were rookies of the year, and essentially what they're going to do with Posey as far as playing catcher, can he play catcher his whole career, or do they need to move him to first base to preserve?
No, more likely they will.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the trend these days. There's no more Johnny Benches that hit 500 career home runs and catch their whole career.
Right.
All right, let's go back to Lorenzo. He's always making faces and nodding every time Leroy's got some sort of analysis. Lorenzo, what are your thoughts on the NLCS?
Okay, comparing Buster Posey to Derek Jeter, even if he was talent-wise and morally wise as good as Derek Jeter, he will never be due to East Coast bias. Nobody ever stays up to watch a Giants game. It's on the West Coast. By the time they play at 10 o'clock start times for the East Coast, where all the people are located and where all the media is at, never going to happen. The NLCS, it's going to be a boring series. It's going to probably go 6 or 7 games. Once again, the only guy I would tune in to watch is Pablo Sandoval. That's the only reason why I would watch it. Buster Posey, he's good, but he's boring. They don't bring anything to the table. I don't mind seeing Lincecum pitch, but Lincecum, maybe he might get in one game or two. Yeah, Lincecum, Barry Zito is still out there too. It's horrible. They were good a couple years ago. I'm not a fan of their team at all. It's boring. Probably not going to watch it, just like nobody else is going to be tuning in to watch the games. Yeah, so I'm just Debbie Downer right now. Maybe I'm just really bitter about the whole situation.
You got to have somebody in here that's just kind of bring this all back to reality. It's interesting. Some good points in terms of either of these teams. You could look up and down their lineup, and any single person, one of these teams is going to go to the World Series, and potentially a hitter will be the most valuable player of the NLCS. But it could literally be any player. It's like if you go to some of the more famous teams, you're like, okay, it's going to be Pujols or Hamilton or Trout or it's going to be Cabrera or Vmart, but you're like, no, Hunter Pence could end up going 10 for 16 and 3 home runs. Mm-hmm. Matt Adams could end up going 9 of 14 and 3 home runs. Yadier Molina could hit 400. All these guys could hit 100 and go cold, but somebody else is going to pick them up. I mean, we've seen the Cardinals in the past, David Freese step up. We've seen, of course, Pablo Sandoval with that incredible World Series a couple of years ago. That you're looking at. You don't know who's going to step up. I tend to agree with Leroy in terms of the pitching favors the Giants. I got some real questions about the Cardinals pitching, especially if Wainwright doesn't look to be healthy. So I have to lean a little bit towards the Giants, I think, but I could be convinced by Michael, who might have some thoughts on it. Michael, what are your final thoughts on the NLCS in terms of how do you see it breaking down? Who do you think is going to
win? Well, first off, I get the feeling Lorenzo either played third base or is obsessed with the third base position because the only 2 people he would watch are third basemen, and he really doesn't want to. So either way, but I tend to agree with him a little bit. Kung Fu Panda kind of lost his luster when he stopped kung fuing everything, and he just kind of became that panda guy. But anywho, it's gonna be one of those things where I don't know how to call this one because on one hand I like the way that San Francisco plays their baseball. They've got experience. I mean, Hunter Pence has won a World Series. Buster Posey's won a World Series. Hunter Pence has maybe won 2 World Series. I don't even know. I really don't care. I could care less about Hunter Pence. I hate Hunter Pence. But that's beside the point.
He's a former Astro. Give him some respect.
He's a former Philly. That's what I hate about him. Anyway.
He was smart. He left Philly and won a championship.
Right.
Well, he was smart. He left Philly. Anyways. But on the other hand, it's the Cardinals. You can never count out the Cardinals. This NLCS is basically who can we not count out less? Because on one hand, you can never count out the Giants, but on the other hand, you can never count out the Cardinals. But I kind of give the edge to, and
I don't want to piggyback off of Leroy, but Leroy did make some good points, especially when it came to Bruce Bochy. That man is a genius, a baseball genius. He represents. He's like the last little bit of old guard that we've got left, and the guy is. He knows like just the little things, like and it's little things that could make or break a season. But Mike Matheny is also a great baseball mind, but I don't know if he's as good as Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy. My gosh, I cannot speak this evening. Anywho, I give it to the Giants. It's going to go 7, and the Giants are going to go back because I'm superstitious, and it's an even year.
I think you have good points, especially about Bochy as the manager. And I would give him an advantage over Matheny. It's hard to count out Matheny, what he's done so far, but I haven't seen as much his moves. It's just, how do you coach Matt Adams in a 3-run home run off Kershaw? How do you, coach these big, Matt Carpenter suddenly hit like he's Babe Ruth? At some point, it's just that Cardinal mentality of taking over the game. And we talked a little bit about, I think Showalter has the advantage over Yost in the American League, but up and down the roster, I would go with the Royals. So I'm going with the Royals, and I'm going to stick with the Giants too. I think those are some good picks. But I will be cheering for the Orioles, and I'll stick it to Leroy next week.
You want to hear something that's really disturbing to me?
What's that?
George Brett is in his 60s now. Think about it. That's how long ago it's been that he's played.
Yeah,
he's in his 60s.
And I swear, if you activated him for one game, he could at least get one hit, I think. He still looks pretty spry up in that booth.
Yeah, somebody should throw him just throw him one down the middle. Go underhand. I don't care. Get that man his hit.
And it was awesome that he didn't use batting gloves either. That was one of his things. No batting gloves, just stuff.
But he did use pine tar.
Hey,
yeah, the man did like his pine tar.
They use pine tar today too. Now.
That's right. All right. Good.
Ask Michael Pineda about that.
Good baseball talk, guys. Can't wait for this week. We'll try to check in next week and see where we're at. By this time next week, we'll probably be deep into the series. We may even have some decided by then. But we like to end with a little bit of a non-baseball topic. And the Stanley Cup or NHL hockey started tonight, and we've got some hockey fans amongst us. Got some fans of Dallas, maybe a West Coast guy, and of course Michael, who writes for our Around the Rink blog. What are your picks? Give me some Stanley Cup finalists, and who's going to hoist Lord Stanley come? God, the hockey season's like 9 months, so like next July or whatever it is. We'll start with Michael.
Oh God, this is so hard because only 2 games have been played and the third one's going on right now. It's really hard to do. There hasn't been a repeat champion since the Detroit Red Wings in 1997-1998 season, and as much as I love this Kings team, I went back and the NHL Network was showing games 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and I still jumped up and down and screamed like a little girl, and got the same chills that I did back in July when Alec Martinez scored the game-winning goal. Having said that, I don't think that they can repeat. As much as I want them to, it's so hard to do. And that Detroit team, that was a really special. That was like chock full of at least 4 or 5 first ballot Hall of Famers. Now that's not saying this LA team doesn't have a couple Hall of Famers. I think there's at least 2, maybe even 3. But I mean, their whole first line in Detroit was nothing but Hall of Famers. It seemed like. I hate to give it to Chicago because I hate Chicago. And I don't want to give it to anybody else in California because it's the Kings. You can't go against the Kings. Hey, God, I don't even know. You know what?
Right for them.
I haven't written for ATR in a year and a half.
But you know more than we do.
Come on, Carolina Panthers. The Carolina Hurricanes.
No, God, no. They're gonna suck. They're gonna be in the bottom 5. You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say it stays on the West Coast, and I give it to Chicago. As much as I hate Chicago, I give it to Chicago.
Who the hell is Chicago on the West Coast? All right, you're done. Lorenzo's back.
They're in the Western Conference. That's the West Coast.
Lorenzo, you're a hockey fan? You follow hockey? Who do you got?
I'm a bandwagon fan. I'm the typical
I
Southern
hear 'em
California.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm the typical Southern California bandwagon fan. I'll admit that. When the Kings were playing, it's funny because nobody talks about the Kings or the Ducks, but all of a sudden Stanley Cup playoffs come around and everybody's a hockey fan. I was at a family barbecue. When the Stanley Cup Finals were going on this year, and Alec Martinez scored the game-winning goal. And you would have thought that Alec Martinez was all of our cousins at this family barbecue that we were at, because everyone jumped up and down, and my uncle, who couldn't tell a hockey puck from a lacrosse stick, jumped up and yelled, "All right, a Latino scored the goal. He's one of us." And at that point, you know what? I'm just, hockey's whatever. What my analysis of hockey, though, is that I heard the top 5 teams in all of the NHL are based on the West Coast, are based in the Western Conference. Like Michael was saying earlier, it's Chicago is going to be one of the top teams. My prediction is going to be Kings against Boston in a rematch of the Stanley Cup from a few years ago. And, yeah, that's pretty much all my analysis I have about hockey. But, yeah, I'm the typical bandwagon fan. I do enjoy going to minor league hockey, and I also enjoy going to Mighty Ducks games. Ducks games. It's a good time to go watch those games. But, yeah, I think I like about hockey, it's the best spectator sport by far. And if nobody's been out to the games, it's a great thing.
How close are you to Bakersfield?
Bakersfield's far. That's up by Modesto.
Okay, so wait a minute. No, San Francisco. Well, you got the Bulls over there in San Francisco. You got the Condors there in Bakersfield. Who are you close to?
Ontario Reign. It's an affiliate of the Kings.
Ontario, yeah.
Beautiful facility.
Yeah. Oh, damn, I forgot about that. Home of Gaspar Kopitar.
I didn't ask any questions about minor league hockey. All right, you guys are done. It is interesting. I'm a hockey fan myself, but I really start coming out in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't have a team that I like. I like the Caps because I used to live in D.C. and I was a fan of the Devils in the 90s days. So I kind of follow them, but I don't watch them every day. But come about April when the Stanley Cup playoffs start, I can't get enough games, and I don't have a team. I just cheer for whoever I'm kind of liking that year. Leroy. Any Dallas team, the Stars got a team, or who are you picking for the hockey Stanley Cup Finals?
Well, I think the Dallas Stars are going to make the playoffs finally.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
But as far as winning it, no. Chicago. I think Chicago will win it all, and I think they will. I will go out on a limb and say those Capitals. I think Ovechkin finally needs to come back.
Yes.
He has been. I mean, what the hell happened to him? I think he is going to make a comeback. He's going to fight for the best player in the game this season. He's going to bring Washington back to respectability. They'll get to this. They'll beat Boston. They'll get past Pittsburgh, and they'll meet the mighty Blackhawks and get crushed.
Yeah,
I'm going with the Blackhawks.
It's hard to pick against Chicago. I picked them last year, and of course they came up short. But
And Alec Martinez goal.
Yeah.
My cousin's goal. Yeah, my cousin. Yeah.
I was gonna say, right?
He was actually, but the funny thing is, I used to watch when he was in the minors. I remember watching him come to Hershey when he was playing with the Manchester Monarchs, and he just got lit up one night. I mean, he must have at least went like 1.5 feet off the air, or up in the air, off the air. What the hell? Anyways, and he just kind of he was obviously shaken up, and he didn't play the rest of the game, and I think he missed a couple games after that, and I'm like, this guy's not going to go anywhere near the NHL. What do I know?
Yeah.
He scores 2 of the biggest goals in Kings history.
Right. All right. Well, great. My pick is the Pittsburgh Penguins, by the way. Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh, that's a man.
Blasphemous.
Right.
Let's stick the kid.
Thank you guys for your contributions. It was nice to have Lorenzo keeping us in check as our Debbie Downer for the show. I don't know if we're going to invite him back next week since he plans to watch no more
Telling us we were all
Bring him
wrong.
back. I didn't hear a word Lorenzo said. I didn't hear a word he said the whole time until he started talking about hockey. It must have been a conspiracy.
Well, you have
All
to.
I heard was me and Leroy were wrong.
Yeah.
Well, guess who got swept? And you know what? Matter of fact, Game 3, when they put C.J. Wilson's ass out there, I said, it's church, it's over with. I'm like this. He's going to choke. And that's spoken from a Texas Ranger fan. He always chokes.
Hey, man, don't diss the straight edge racer. You can't do that.
He is crap.
We got to wrap it up.
He and Hamilton.
Start muting you guys. Thanks again for.
You're gonna have to get the Tony Reality mute button.
We'll talk more baseball next week. Sorry for the drop-ins, the dropouts, but we all made it through the show. We'll see you next time on Diamond Kings.
Go KC!